All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and yet another signing. And not only another signing in general, but a third edge rusher signing just in these first couple of days of the legal tampering period. We're here to talk about how the Washington Commanders just signed defensive end, well, technically edge rusher, more so outside linebacker, Dante Fowler. Is he coming off of his best pass rushing season of his career from the last year that he was just with the Dallas Cowboys with Dan Quinn and those guys? Of course, we're going to talk about whether we should be worried about Dan Quinn bringing so many Cowboys players with him. And now, are we officially done with edge rusher? Is Dante Fowler a rotational piece? Is he a starter? How does he compare to the other guys that we've already signed and that are already here in this current Commanders edge group? We're going to take a look at this current Commanders edge group and see, does this stop us from all of the guys we've signed so far that we currently have in the room? Does it stop us from potentially still drafting a guy like my boy Darius Robinson, potentially in the second round of the draft coming up in a month and a half? And of course, as far as Dante Fowler goes, we're going to take a look at some advanced stats. We're going to take a look at his Pro Football Focus grades and all of that. We're going to talk about where he fits in and everything, because y'all may be surprised about how well he actually fits in to what the Commanders have going on right now. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned. Again, I'm gonna keep saying it, man. Every little thing that the Commanders do, I'm coming out with a video. So if you want to be up to date to every little move that the Commanders make, or even if we're reportedly interested in somebody, we haven't even necessarily signed them yet, there's just a rumor or a report that we're pursuing them, I'm gonna have you updated on every little thing. It doesn't matter who we hire. It can be a kicker, it can be a rotational player. I'm having y'all updated, and we're doing deep dives into every single person. We're not gonna cheat anybody by combining them with another person in one video. We're going to do individual videos with every single free agency signing. So stay tuned. I'm gonna keep y'all updated on everything. Your one-stop shop for everything Commanders. I can't wait for free agency to die down so we can move on to the draft, so I can start doing more film sessions for the draft, guys that we may be targeting, all of that type of stuff. I'm gonna keep y'all updated on the guys that they're currently interested in, who we've met with, and all of that type of stuff. So stay tuned for everything Commanders. And without further ado, let's go and get to it, man. Let's get it. All right, so the first place I saw this announced was Jordan Schultz of Bleacher Report. He tweeted, "Breaking: free agent pass rusher Dante Fowler Jr. plans to sign with the Commanders. Sources tell Bleacher Report Dan Quinn continues to bolster his defensive line." And I feel like out of all of the news that we've gotten so far since the legal tampering period started like less than 48 hours ago, I feel like this is the least breaking. Not necessarily because this is the least effective player, but this is also the player that we could kind of assume made the most sense and was like the most automatic. We're definitely going to end up signing that guy out of everybody, man. And I'm assuming that this is for like a very cheap 1-year deal. It's probably going to be something close to, or maybe even less than a 1-year, $3 million deal that he just signed with the Cowboys last year when he played for them last season for 1 season. But here we go. Another defensive lineman, specifically another edge rusher. Now we have 3 edge rushers that we've signed in 2 days, and specifically 2 edge rushers that we've signed today alone. We signed one yesterday in Dorrance Armstrong Jr. We signed Cleveland Farrell earlier today, and then now Dante Fowler. That's 3 edge rushers again in 2 days. And hey, man, thank you. Edge rusher was our #1 need entering free agency, point blank period. We could talk about, yeah, we should take quarterback second overall and all these different things, and left tackle. It was between left tackle and edge rusher, our biggest need entering free agency. Now with as many edge rushers that we've gotten, offensive tackle, left tackle specifically, is definitely our biggest need. But entering free agency, edge rusher was right up there. You got to remember, man, the Washington Commanders just traded 2 of their top starting edge rushers at the trade deadline, and then we had another 3 that were unrestricted free agents that it looks like we may not bring back any of the guys. It was reported through John Com a few days ago that they were in talks with, or at least in communication with Jay Smith-Williams and Casey Hill. Maybe they would bring those guys back. But now with all of these signings that we've made, 3 again in just 2 days, it's not looking likely. But man, it was basically KJ Henry, Andre Jones, and friends for a while until we finally made these signings these past couple of days. And now that we've signed 3 guys to help soften the weakness of our edge rusher group, I still don't think Cleveland Farrell and Dante Fowler do not stop you from drafting like a Darius Robinson in the 2nd round if you want to. But I do think, most importantly, that signing 3 edge rushers in free agency gives you the flexibility to basically be like, okay, so if we still need left tackle entering the draft, assuming we take quarterback 2nd overall, now we have the roster stability and flexibility to take our 2nd round picks, both of them, and maybe trade up into the 1st round to get a starting left tackle if that's what we want to do, if we don't end up signing a starting left tackle in free agency like a Tyron Smith, who I'm really hoping. Right now, that's my favorite free agency signing left. All-pro safety Justin Simmons is probably like a close 2nd, but Tyron Smith is easily my #1 target. And I have a few other targets as well. I'm probably going to do a whole video breaking down what are our biggest remaining needs at this point, so stay tuned for that. But hey man, we got to figure out left tackle, but it looks like edge rusher, we're getting some stuff figured out now. And when you talk about the theme of all of these signings that we've made so far, really except for one, all have some form of familiarity and connection to some Commanders, coaches, or front office members. And this one takes it to a whole new level. This one probably has the deepest connection to anybody. Because you got to remember, Dan Quinn recruited Dante Fowler to the Florida Gators when Dan Quinn was coaching there. Then, when he became the head coach for the Falcons years later, he signed Dante Fowler as a free agent. And then, he wasn't just done there. When he went to the Cowboys to become their defensive coordinator, he made sure he brought Dante Fowler to the Cowboys as well for 1 year last year. Now he's here in Washington with Dan Quinn becoming the head coach here. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. That's why, just like the Dorrance Armstrong signing that I predicted as well, it just made too much sense for me to feel like I can even deserve any credit for predicting these signings that ended up happening. Tyler Biadasz was fairly predictable. Maybe I can get a little bit of credit for that. But Dorrance Armstrong Jr. and Dante Fowler were so automatic, I don't even necessarily feel like I deserve any real praise for it. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Like, this was literally too obvious. Literally, wherever Dan Quinn goes, Dante Fowler follows. He's been with Dan Quinn at 4 of the 5 teams that he's coached in the past few, how many ever years. They're literally attached at the hip. And it's crazy because he literally acknowledged it himself, as in Dante Fowler. Dante Fowler literally was once quoted saying, quote, "I'm fine with just playing for him for the rest of my life," unquote. And he's basically done just that, literally, except for the Seattle Seahawks. Since Dan Quinn was a coach in college football, Dante Fowler's been there. So now you also have Dan Quinn, Joe Witt Jr., Sharif Floyd as coaches, and Dorrance Armstrong Jr. and Dante Fowler as players that have all followed each other from the Dallas Cowboys to the Washington Commanders. And who knows, maybe Micah Parsons will follow all of them next year. You never know, man. I mean, Micah Parsons has been speaking very positively about Dan Quinn and how much he's going to miss him and things like that. I doubt we're going to be willing to spend that money to make it happen, and I'm pretty sure the Cowboys are going to find a way to pay him. And when in doubt, worst case scenario, they'll franchise tag him. But I'm pretty sure Micah Parsons has at least considered it, thought about it at least. And I don't hate having a few ex-Cowboys here from last year. I really don't, man. They led the NFL in takeaways over the last 3 seasons, and even though we haven't necessarily brought over a DB yet, can we just at least get some of that, please? Can we get some of those turnovers? This is not how Ron Rivera was bringing over the Panthers. First of all, let's get it out the way that Dan Quinn is not the one running the show like how Ron Rivera ran the show here previously. This is the Adam Peters show. It's just the fact that these signings just make that much sense. It's literally that simple. And another thing I noticed is that not only do the Commanders love former first round picks today with the signings they've made, because all 3 signings they've made today were former first round picks years ago. But more specifically, they must have really liked that 2015 draft class, man, because now with Marcus Mariota and Dante Fowler, we have signed both the second and third overall first round picks from that 2015 draft. I mean, that is crazy, really random, not very meaningful, but still crazy. And hopefully there's some talent lying dormant in there somewhere. Even though in Mariota's case, to be completely honest with you, I hope we never see him touch the field outside of preseason. I don't want to see him throw a single pass for us outside of preseason, please. But hopefully in Dante Fowler's case, there's some talent lying dormant there. And I'm going to tell you now, Dante Fowler's fit is great, man. I feel like that's the most important part of this entire signing, how well he fits with what we already have going for the edge rusher depth that we have for this team. Because look at it like this. Dorance Armstrong Jr. is destined for a larger role and will be both an edge setting run stuffer and versatile pass rusher as a starter, while Clelin Ferrell will primarily be just like a pure edge setting run stuffer, in my opinion, for the most part. And then now you have Dante Fowler, who's a really good pass rush specialist, a rotational pass rusher type of guy. So between those three signings of those edge rushers so far over the course of these past 2 days, we've gained 2 run stoppers and 2 proven pass rushers. And then you're adding that to KJ Henry, who had flashes last year in both the run and the pass as well. So, hey, man, we're starting to build something here in the edge rusher group. But most importantly, let's dive into Dante Fowler and his stats. First of all, the thing that jumps off the page the quickest is that Dante Fowler had a career high 14.1 pass rush win rate in 2023. And if you don't like advanced stats, how about we talk about some Pro Football Focus grades? And he had a 64.4 overall grade with a 62 run defense grade, which isn't terrible, but he had a 70.7 pass rush grade on limited snaps. So if he would have played enough snaps to qualify in Pro Football Focus's edge rusher rankings, pass rush grade wise specifically, he was better last year than Charles Omenihu, Montez Sweat, our Dorance Armstrong, Nick Bottino, Calais Campbell. We have Jerry Hughes, Josh Uche, Preston Smith, George Kalafdis, Yuta Gross Matos, Miles Murphy, Leonard Floyd, BJ Ojolari, DeMarcus Walker, Cameron Jordan. Just purely pass rush grade wise, though. I'm not talking about overall edge rusher, just purely pass rush grade. All of those names, Dante Fowler had a better grade at that specifically than all of those guys we just named, which is actually really important. And this wasn't just a 2023 thing. Let's also get this out the way. This wasn't just a flash in the pan, because you had 2023 and 206 pass rushing snaps. He had 36 pressures, 5 sacks, which led to a 14.1 pass rush win rate with a 70.7 pass rush grade. But in 2022, the year before that, in 259 pass rush snaps, he had 40 pressures, 6 sacks, and a 73 pass rush grade. So, hey, man, this is not a flash in the pan. This guy is a pretty good situational pass rusher. What you ask him to do, which is rush the passer, he can do that. And again, the whole philosophy around why we're not playing about this defensive end, this edge rusher, and attacking the quarterback situation, why we brought in Frankie Louvu, who even as a Mike linebacker was graded by Pro Football Focus as the best pass rushing off-ball linebacker in all of the NFL, not just this free agency class, but everybody, including Fred Warner, Roquan Smith, whoever you want to throw in there. And then also Jamin Davis. Dan Quinn has already said they're going to deploy him in a more Micah Parsons-like role, where he's going to go after the quarterback more so than he used to in the previous 4 years since he was drafted by Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio. He'll be covering a little bit less. He'll be run stopping a little bit less, and he's going to rush the passer way more. We're doing all of this so that we can be a far more deadly and consistent pass rush team. Because again, like I've talked about in previous videos, the deadlier the pass rush, the better our DBs, most importantly, a guy like Emmanuel Forbes can be. There's a reason Trevon Diggs led the NFL in interceptions 2 years ago, and then Deron Bland went and set a record for pick sixes of all time as a 5th round rookie, because the deadly pass rush that was in front of them that allowed them to take risk in coverage and hunt interceptions. And Emmanuel Forbes was literally known as one of the best guys to ever do that in college, but he didn't work out last year because Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio took him from being that to not giving them a pass rush and asking them to play very far off in coverage and just basically be a pure cover corner. Whereas Emmanuel Forbes is better being used like a Trevon Diggs or Deron Bland, hunting interceptions, taking risks, and maybe you'll give up a couple of big plays, but you'll also in return make some big plays, some game-changing plays. I think guys like Emmanuel Forbes and Quan Martin and all of these DBs that we currently have, and hopefully we add some in free agency and especially through the draft, but even the guys that we currently have, I'm expecting them all to play better because of this initiative to improve the pass rush that we have. Even, again, outside of just the defensive ends we've signed these past couple of days, even with the signing of Frankie Luvu and the change of role and responsibilities for Jamin Davis. So I'm super excited. And just think about it, man. 27 hours ago, Washington had 2 defensive ends on his roster with a combined 5 NFL starts. Now, after just barely even an entire 2 days and 3 signings later, now our defensive end group has a total of 106 NFL starts. We went from 5 to 106. If that doesn't raise the floor, I don't know what does, man. We may not have an elite ceiling in the edge rusher group, even though I would argue that Dorrance Armstrong does have some untapped potential and ceiling to him. But at the very least, we know at the very least, worst case scenario, we have definitely risen the floor of this edge rusher group, and I'm excited. And again, I don't necessarily think that this full-blown stops you from taking edge rusher early in the upcoming draft, but it does give you the freedom to prioritize other positions if you choose to. The entire point of this free agency spree that Adam Peters has been on has been to allow the Commanders to draft who they want to and not who they need to in a month and a half, which allows us to basically responsibly go after best player available as often as possible, which I personally love. I feel like if we would have been drafting best player available as much as possible the past few years, we wouldn't have been in a situation where we only won 4 games and ended up with a number 2 overall pick. Now, granted, I'm happy we have this number 2 overall pick so we could potentially get a guy like Jayden Daniels, but at the same time, man, best player available tends to lead to better rosters top to bottom years later down the road. And again, going back to being a floor raiser, you could actually argue that so far in free agency with the 3 signings that we've made, 2 of them are starters and 1 of them is a rotational piece, and potentially Dante Fowler, who we're talking about in this video. And that's coming from John Comm himself, who's as plugged in with the Commanders as you can possibly be, saying that. I was thinking, okay, Cleveland Farrell in as a rotation, like specifically first and second downs, Dante Fowler in specifically in obvious pass rush situations, and then Dorrance Armstrong Jr. is always starting somewhere on one of the sides of the defensive line, whether it's stopping the run or rushing the passer. But John Comm said straight up through a tweet that we have officially signed 2 starters and 1 rotational piece, and I thought that was interesting. That makes this signing even better than what I originally thought when I saw the notification. So again, we have a certain floor here, but I would like to go get some ceiling in the draft. I'm not even gonna lie to you. But now, because of how active Adam Peters has been, that is more of a luxury than a need going into the draft, and I'm super excited about that. Also, before we get up out of here, shouts out to my boys at the Tan Top Podcast. You follow them on Twitter, YouTube, everywhere. I completely agree with this, and I felt like this needed to be pointed out. They said, truthfully, the 4-13 record last year doesn't properly reflect how bad the Commanders were in 2023. The dead last scoring differential of -189 provides a better picture. So even though we ended up with the 2nd overall pick, we were technically the worst team in NFL last year, even worse than the Panthers if you're looking at point differential. They lost games by 33, 20, 12, 35, 30, 17, and 28. So the goal for 2024, just be competitive every week. And you know how you do that? By raising the floor of every position group. And then when we go to the draft, we could try to get some ceiling there, which takes me to my last point. Shouts out to my boy Big Doug at Doug McCray NFL. Make sure you follow him on Twitter and YouTube and everywhere else you can find him as well, because I completely agree with this as well. This felt like it had to have been the plan for Commanders this whole time. Draft is weaker in edge defenders and deeper in offensive tackles. Masterclass in using free agency to bolster the floor and making the draft all about elevating the ceiling. I absolutely love it. I'm a big fan of what Adam Peters is doing right now. It's hard for me to give it an A+. You can get an A+ if you go get me like a Tyron Smith and or Justin Simmons, but so far I'm probably leaning towards like A- at worst with what we're doing right now and how we're basically strategizing and using free agency to help us go in the draft with a certain strategy to where we can get what we want to get the luxuries rather than what we need to get. And we already have a floor. We're going into the draft to raise our ceiling. I absolutely love it. We're not going into the draft to potentially have to plug in weaknesses. I mean, if you want, if we don't sign a guy like Tyron Smith in free agency at left tackle, you could argue that would be our only weakness that we have going into the draft at that point. Everything else, yeah, of course we want upgrades all up and down the roster at every position group possible, but we don't have any straight up hole in our team except for left tackle as of right now. And I love that, man. So you never know. Maybe we go out and sign a Tyron Smith. Only time will tell. I'm hoping they get in on it. It's already been reported there's a large market out there for him. Several teams are interested. I hope we're one of them and hope we win. But either way, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Again, man, all you got to do is stay tuned. I promise I got y'all updated on every little thing that the Commanders are doing, no matter how small, no matter how big, no matter if it's a fact or if it's just a report or a rumor. I'm keeping y'all updated on every little thing, Commanders, your one-stop shop. Of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about this Dante Fowler signing. Are you high on it, or you feel like it's just all right, or are you very down on it? Are you one of those people that's sick of us hiring or bringing in as many Cowboys, ex-Cowboys guys as possible, or are you just like me where it's like it's whatever, as long as they add to our chances of winning, I'm cool with it, and I trust what Adam Peters and Dan Quinn are building here, most notably Adam Peters. So let me know how you feel about everything, especially Dante Fowler, and make sure you stay tuned because I'm working on a lot of different videos for y'all, even outside of just giving y'all updates on the guys that we're signing and targeting and things like that. So stay tuned, man. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I appreciate y'all. I'm out.